Welcome back into part 2 Cannabis Conversations with Jesse Duncan. This is the free advice hour. It's only going to be 30 minutes, but there will be no call-ins either, but that would be fun if we were to do that in the future for free advice, Jesse. Look, here's the thing, folks. Before we get started, we'd like to thank Fat Nugs Magazine for their sponsorship for us, but more importantly, what they do for the industry. Equity, legacy, mom and pop, veterans, you name it. If it's a support within this whole cause we are in, Dustin and his team are in it. They're trying to do their best to get the message out for it. Reach out to him about their retail and brand partnerships and be a part of the movement yourself along with your brand, because who doesn't want to be attached to beautiful stuff such as this? Jesse Duncan, part 2, as we've already billed it, is the free advice hour. You want to give out insights to retail partners and cultivators. I feel like we should start with cultivators because it feels like the way the process is. So let's do that. Tell us the cultivator insights you're looking to share with folks, given your robust history with this great plant.
For sure. Disclaimer, of course, is unsolicited advice can be, tricky, but this all comes from the heart.
This dude's not a lawyer. He's not like on any, you know what I'm saying?
Dude,
This is not,
for me
do
being
not
in the
DM me
trenches
about any legal stupid shit here. This is a guy trying to simply help an industry with his knowledge. And if you don't know about his knowledge, I suggest you pause now. You go back and you watch part 1. Then you come back and then you'll understand why we're giving Jesse the free hour of advice. No lawyers were consulted because none are here or present. This is just a dude and his opinions. Take it away, Jesse.
So times have changed. There was a time where you can well remember that just having weed as a cultivator was enough. Like you could have really subpar stuff. You could still move it for a pretty good ticket. Competition, in a lot of regions was non-existent. And even here, we just didn't have the same level of production that we started to see deeper into the 2000s. We know now that there's scale coming on. We know that a lot of small operators are feeling the pressure. We see what's happening to prices. Larger operators, there is some benefit in terms of procurement and bulk purchases and some other things that helps drive cost of production down. So what, as a cultivator, can we do in legacy regions and elsewhere that really anchored this industry for a long, long time? How can we kind of hang in the game? Always starts with genetics, right? And my word here is that you don't chase, but you do need to stay relevant. So OG was king of the hill here for 10 years. We grew almost nothing but OG. 2020, everybody started asking for perps. I don't know how it happened. I don't know why it happened. It happened. And then the price differential between what everybody was asking for, and we happen to have a lot of OG in the ground, a little bit of purple, then there was a huge price disparity that happened. So when I say stay relevant, if every bulk buyer, if the vast majority of retailers want something, say purple candy gas, which has been a craze now for several years, like let's not stray too far from that. It doesn't mean that you go chasing every new hype strain, every new indoor boutique bred strain that comes out. That can actually be a dangerous game. But I believe personally that it makes sense to anchor your production in what's actually moving. And if you don't know what's actually moving, call your local distros because they do, right? Talk to people. Don't isolate yourself on the hill or wherever it is you're growing. Talk to folks. The other thing is sourcing material from folks you know and trust. A lot of people up in Humboldt got burned sourcing some of this hype stuff from Central and SoCal. They got bunk cuts, they got fake cuts, they got a lot of viroid. So I personally believe that you buy genetics, if you're not breeding yourself, from people who are operating in your region, who know what works in that region, who know where the sales velocity is, and someone you can fricking call if something goes south, right? And so starts with genetics. I have a couple other bullet points, but it looked like you wanted to jump in for a second.
I do, yeah. I want to ask you something about the genetics part because it's something that's fascinated me for a while because that's how I got into it. That's how I was introduced. Is the guy that taught me how to grow. He was hardcore about the genetics. He was very specific about what you do and how many times you cut, whatever the case, just to keep things pure and clean or whatever. He was very opinionated. He had a direction. When you talk about cultivation in the way that you're talking about it at scale, Are you talking about craft? Is this kind of, are you establishing the same kind of for everybody up the pipeline from the small craft to the guy? I mean, I'm not, let's exclude the glass houses of the world, but like somewhere just before that, you know, in the realm of that, or like, is there a scale that fits this sort of path you're discussing, or is it linear?
I believe that if you're growing cannabis, this is in any scale, this is a core consideration. You can be the best grower in the world, and if you're not starting with genetics that either are in demand or that are true to form, you are in trouble. If you go buy a bunch of sick, viroid-ridden genetics, your production's shot, your weed's going to be shit, and your year is going to be collapsed. So I've seen this happen. I know others that have seen this happen. So genetic material and that starting material, doesn't matter how good you are, it's critical. And I put it number one on my list, even before environmental control. Genetics as the anchor. Sales velocity, market price, health and vigor. And that's
Okay.
like, I don't care
So,
if you got one plant or a million.
okay. So this is all right. So I'm not, again, when I grew, I did not grow at scale. I simply grew in my house to help people. And I was advised by, you know, I call him my weed Sherpa, someone who done it for a long time. And so I am at best a casual grower. So this is where I start to want to ask questions, because as a car guy, all the questions you're talking about is something that we deal with in the car industry. Yes, it's about cars. It's not about weed, but it's about stocking what people are buying, you know, having the right deals on what people are looking for, marketing to people, speaking, you know, whatever it is up and down the line here. So you said something in the intro here that I circled a couple of times, which was anchors and understanding what sells. I don't know how to say this without being an asshole, so here it goes. Are you telling me that there are people growing weed in states to provide weed to people and they have no idea if anyone wants to buy it?
So a lot of people, because for so long, you grew the weed, they came, you build it, they will come. That happened. Only a few years ago did we actually get to a position, Southern Oregon went through this, NorCal went through this, where people actually would grow weed, they'd get to harvest and not have a buyer. People actually started like, whoa, dude, what do I do with my weed? And prices spiral further. People are fire selling shit. There's auctions up in Oregon for 100 a pound. Like, it happened. So pre-sale, it's like contractual stuff like that is, a lot of people have tried that. Things get weird. But what I am suggesting is that you understand what is moving in the market that you're trying to serve. And people know, the distributors know, retailers know, even your connections, you know, to the unregulated market know. And you should be having conversations with those people. A lot of people too, Sean, had in-house genetics, stuff they bred, stuff they loved, stuff that worked forever, and it kind of stopped working. There's an emotional connection. There's a whole bunch that's all wrapped up into this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that would disagree with some of these views. But for me, if I'm growing cannabis as a commercial cannabis farmer and I'm looking to sell my crop and stay in business, I want to be relevant with what's in demand in the market. It's pretty simple to me.
Yeah, and that's my thing is I would figure there's enough data sets. It seems like there's enough data companies getting into this world. I think that have the intel at least to start at a basic level. And I guess it does shock me, you know, to think. I mean, we were dealing, you know, automotively, you'd be dealing with millions of dollars of inventory, right? So you had to make sure that it was what people wanted to buy. I mean, that it only made sense to stock it. And you know, in our world, as a dealer, you deal with the manufacturer, so you deal with the cultivator, if you will, and they sort of say to you, "Hey, we know you love the hotties, you can have those, but we got some mids over here. We're going to need you to take to make the relationship fair." Does that sort of thing happen in the industry of cannabis? Is it like, hey, yeah, we've got the OG, but you know, we also have the shit we try that isn't as great, and we expect you to take that alongside?
Not so much. I mean, but what does happen is there is a rush for genetic material at the start of the season. So there are situations where folks want to grow a certain strain and they just can't get their hands on it in acceptable volume, assuming they don't have their own mother stock, because everyone floods in looking for material in March. And yes, some of the clone production guys, they understand this and try and build up. But to really accurately forecast demand is tough. So I've been put some strains over the years that we really like. They weren't like on our list per se, but I'd rather grow, you know, 2,000 plants of something than nothing. But this is, again, back to that, the importance, in my view, of working with local genetics companies, local clone providers, is because they're going to know what works best in your environment. So I like Highline. These are awesome people. Their shit is like 5 miles from my house. Source Nursery up in Arcata. These folks are growers themselves. They understand what's happening in the market, but they also understand our mountainous regions. Now you go through the gnarly temperature and humidity swings, and they can help you sort of connect the dots and build a bridge between what's in demand and what you can actually grow successfully. Like, you're not just going to run out and source a bunch of material from, an indoor clone shop in LA because they're like super in demand and these indoor packs are going for $3,000. It might not work in your environment. But if you understand that it's purple candy gas, which it has now been for years, that gives you a starting point.
That's what I think a lot of people don't. You mentioned it earlier about the concept of not only talking to local people, but don't box yourself in, don't isolate yourself. And I find that as new people get into the industry, because again, I've been in the background since 04, doing different things. We were doing marketing for cannabis dispensaries back in Denver in the early 2000s, getting them online before Google actually gave a shit. They didn't really care about us that way. And so we were doing all those things. And then from there on out, I've been in the background as as a small-time fund guy to help people get things done for their dispensaries or whatever the case is. So I've listened, I've seen, I've heard. As an entrepreneur, obviously, I've kept my eye on things. But I think what I'm finding with people getting into it now is there's some ego that comes with it because of the amount of capital that takes it to get involved right now, in my experience, Jesse, that the people who do it are like, well, it's my money, it's my, and I'm going to do this. And it's like, as someone who, again, no horse in the game here. Don't do that. Just don't do that. If you are going to invest your life savings or millions of dollars, whatever it is, if it's a humongous investment into you, you should be tapping every fucking resource you can find every single time you can, because you wouldn't get there without it. I assume your resources, your Rolodex of people is how Jesse gets to where Jesse is today at some level, right?
It's 100% true. And when I'm coming into a season, like if I was going to take on a farm tomorrow, I would never dream about planting a plant on that piece of earth without sending a soil analysis off, without testing the water, using outside resources to understand that, to talk to the genetics companies locally. So I would lean, despite having experience, very heavily on third parties, just as if I was going to launch a retail or a distro or anything else. If you've been around, I can fall victim to this too. You start thinking you're smart and that you have all the answers, but things are changing, times change. And so I think being humble and just being in mutually beneficial relationships, having those supply chain partnerships, having people you can trust, it's critical.
A callback to part one. As far as humbleness is concerned, my biomechanics have changed in my 40s, Jesse. I have found a way to do that. Up until that point, I was an arrogant asshole for a long time, and being in an industry that I'm in, it's cutthroat. You have to sort of believe you are better than everyone else to get anywhere, and that sucks, but it's how I did it. But in my 40s, I have worked through that. I have tried to be more humble. I've tried to understand things differently, and so I think it comes with growth. But I would just recommend anybody investing their money in this industry, be very careful and understand things like Jesse's talking about. Just because it's the weed business this isn't what you think or see on TV. Okay. That's what I would say to you. You don't come in here and get rich. As a matter of fact, you talk to a lot of people in this industry right now, and rich is the last word on a lot of their minds for various reasons. But the price compression, races to bottoms, opening markets, it's wild to see what happens, Jesse. So we've talked about the cultivator piece. They should have the strain. They should be able to get involved with that. How does that play into the retail piece? How do you see it as retail partners being able to connect with potentially their supply chain going backwards and say, let's do this? What does that advice look like from your perspective?
Yeah. Let me just put a quick bow tie on cultivation. Production obviously matters. The way that you organize your cultivation area. There were times before legalization where folks had huge spacing between plants, these large open fields. When you're paying for canopy space, when you have a defined plot, the way that you line that out, the way that you maximize production through plant shaping techniques, through foliar feeding and nutrition and shaping, all of that in today's world is absolutely critical. Quality goes without saying. Brix levels within your plant, which is sugar levels, you can actually measure that with a little device. So things like humic acid, fulvic acid, aminos, carbs, there's a lot you can do. There's things you can do post-harvest to really help keep the nose on your product, keep that outer trichome layer intact. More than ever before, all that is important. And then now our dovetail into retail. Supply chain relationship for a cultivator is critical. Do you have friends in distro? Are your distros well connected in the metro markets where they're moving a majority of the flower? And then have you built relationship with retailers? Every grower I know wants more retail shelf space. And then you ask them, well, what are you doing to go get that? And often you hear, well, not a ton. I personally think there's a really lovely connection between equity retailer operators, so social equity licenses, and legacy cultivator, because there's a shared history, there's a love for the plant, there's often shared like stories of persecution and the like. So I think that some of that stuff makes a ton of sense, but you also have to understand, what does a retailer today need? Shelf space, it's like a war zone, right? Every brand wants in, all the cultivators want in. Retailers can be really selective in what they choose. So what they want are pre-samples. They want shared marketing. So how can you, as the cultivator, as the brand, drive traffic to the store with what you're doing, what you're offering with your social posts? They want shared discounts, and some even want slotting fees, kind of pay to play. So as a cultivator, you need to be aware of the game that's being played. Yes, you're up against folks that are likely well capitalized, have investor capital and the like. But if you are telling me that you want retail shelf space, you need to know the game and you need to get super active. So dovetail into retail, seeing the exact same thing, right? You could open a shop 15 years ago and probably kill it. There wasn't a ton of competition. You had weed, people found the weed. They used to literally be lined up at HPRC and Arcata. That business closed 2 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Long-standing staple of our community forever, had pretty good weed, sourced a lot of local stuff. They're gone. We're seeing larger and larger operators, right? Many of whom are our friends. This isn't a knock against, large or size, but they tend to have buying power. They tend to be able to get discounted rates on product. They can bargain for more favorable terms. They have marketing teams. And the mom and pop operator is now finding themselves in a lot of markets disadvantaged. So what can you do? I firmly
Well,
believe, and have gotten this feedback through talking to retailers over the last 15 months, is localized offerings are a draw. So when everybody carries the exact same stuff, you already used this word earlier in our conversation, there's a race to the bottom. If everybody's got the exact same steezy or the exact same everything, and this isn't a knock against those brands, it's all you have to compete on is either your service level, or what most folks are doing is just doing it on price. That's a losing game, and we see that. However, when you're curating local product, organic equivalent, making that mean something to your customer base through staff picks, by digital shelving on your e-commerce menu, by actually offering medicinal products, so not a little 100 milligram like high sugar syrup, but an actual medicinal tincture. So I think there's things that you can do in menu curation that make sense.
the race to the bottom is, as you said, it is a losing cause. Okay. We have been dealing with it in automotive for my almost entire existence, except for basically outstanding issues. So like, I've been in the car business since 9/11, which changed everything. It was the first time people had ever seen 0% on a car in their lives. They were blown away. And then I was in 08 in that crisis. And so you watch. So what you have in COVID, Jesus, my God. So what it does, right? You watch people do that, and all those races to the bottom stop when there's extenuating circumstances where things can't be as readily available, or the market becomes scarce. Like, that's what drove prices up during COVID, when people were trading cars like fucking commodities. And I'm sitting here going, no, don't do this. Like, I know you don't see this, but 5 years from now, you're going to be so mad. That Corvette's going to be worth like 60 grand, and you're going to be mad at everyone because you're into it for 100. And that's what's happened, Jesse. I've been doing this shit for a long fucking time. This is what's happening. Cannabis is sort of in a similar role. And yeah, don't play the price game. Stand up on quality. We had the CEO of Embark on the show, and she was just so honest about what it takes to run an establishment and be successful with people who want to learn together. Lauren Carpenter, thank you, Lauren Carpenter. And she was like, look, this is how you grow a business. This is what you have to care about. And you're talking about the retail shelf space and the cultivator relationship. There's a clear bridge that needs to happen here. I think there's a gap that's existing between supplier and retail that is concerning. Am I overstating that?
No, I think it's the case. And part of what's happening is retailers are also under pressure. They are also, in many cases, experiencing margin compression. In some cases, it's easier for them just to source some mid-grade, cheap flower from a large producer that always has it than to go around to shop, to be judicious, and do all those other things. On Embark, they're a team that I respect immensely. Lauren, Courtney, the whole team. They're doing amazing work. A, they're brilliant in business. B, they have a hyper localized model where they are ingrained in that community. 1% of, I think, either profits or sales goes back into that community. Their design elements, reflect the community. They care. They're sharp. They market. They're doing a whole bunch of things, which is why they're rising up while so many others fail. At the very same time, also interestingly, supporting the people that we love. Humboldt Family Farms is in their stores, sourcing organic equivalent product from mom and pop operators. Embark gets it. I hope others will as well, but I would love to see it. Part of the thing, too, was because the regulation, Sean, you got to go through a distributor. So me as a grower, I can't just go giving away flower to all these retail shops and build relationship, but you can certainly pick up the phone. You can meet people at trade shows. You can work with a distributor who's going to door knock for you. You can get a distributor license yourself, not free. But so the game has, in some ways, limited, I think, that connective tissue.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean you can't have a great presence in socials, be meeting and greeting, visiting shops on an informal basis. All those things, I think, make sense.
That's interesting. I did not know that about the model. And it's funny because I was just going to comment to you about how this kind of sounds like back in the day. Look, when we were growing in medical cannabis in Colorado for dispensaries, and I say medical because not a doctor, not even a scientist, not even a none of that stuff, people, just a guy who learned from another guy. So the fact that we were able to sell it as medical, the whole thing obviously has its gray areas. Okay. But the point is that we were able to walk in with our product, sit with a dispensary, crack some jars, have some sniffs, talk about what's on the shelf, talk about what one needs. And I fucking loved it, Jesse. It was the coolest time of the year.
It was
of the whatever. It was just to have that engagement. I was going to say to you that I hate the Colorado model now of just vertical integration. Grow your own in the back, bring it out. Stop. Vertical integration is a pipe dream in most every business it's ever been mentioned in its life, because most people are barely good or great at one or two things, let alone 100%. 5 of them. I'm sorry, it's a reality of business. So you can't just walk in. Humble Farms can't just walk in to Embark and say, hey, newest runs of you have your alcohol vendors, right? So what you're telling me is they have the alcohol vendors. I have to go through the distro guy to go there.
Which they are. So Humboldt Family Farms has their own farm, but they're smart. And so they are a
distro. Okay, so they're an example of someone who could do it differently.
The people they're sourcing from can't just grab a bag of weed and go in there. So they're a middleman. So your distribution partners as a cultivator is it is the thing. It's after production. It's who are you working with in distro? We happen to have some awesome ones up here. My friends Andy and Marjo, who you probably see from Humboldt Trim. Humboldt Family Farms is doing awesome work. The folks at Up North are doing great work. Timo at Seventh Wave. And they're well connected. They know people. They've got showrooms down south. They're hustling. But if you don't have that as a cultivator, it's really, really, really tough. And again, the shelf space is so competitive that the folks you're working with in distro, they've got to be really good at what they do. They have to have grit, determination, resolve, relationship, and all the rest. And
So
It's a
then,
crying
okay,
shame,
Jesse,
and there's a ton of folks that wish we could rewind the clock to the
sure.
215
Follow-up
area where you
question.
could walk in with a bag of weed.
Well, yeah, that's what I wish for all of us. I wish it was that easy. I wish we could just
Yeah,
have these
yeah,
conversations. I wish it was not
yeah.
as it's sterile. If you go in like dispensaries here in the Midwest, like the California, when I see the Embark stuff, right? I like look at the imagery. I'm like, oh, that looks like inviting. In Illinois, because I live in a prohibition state here, still in Wisconsin, and in Illinois, when I walk into a dispensary or even the UP in Michigan, I like the UP better because at least they have products. The Illinois experience, Jesse, is a fucking kiosk. Sorry, dude.
Yeah,
Pass.
I know.
I'll keep
I
calling
know.
legacy friends. Like I'm not gonna do. I'm
For
not.
real.
I'm sorry, and I have a lot of friends in Illinois. I love it. It's not your fault. It's what your government created for you. But like the whole kiosk thing with no other experience but a sign and somebody telling me what they think is good, from my consumerism perspective, doesn't cut it. Now that's probably because I'm an 40s a daily user kind of guy, but it doesn't matter. I have an opinion on it. So when you look at retail experiences in California, what
Mm.
can be different within
Yeah, and I would say
regulation?
that personal loving touch. So the biggest opportunity set for a retailer is retention, in my view. So customer acquisition costs for retailers are going up. People are complaining about marketplace solutions like Weed Mats and Leafly that they're overspending, they're getting dwindling result. And so what you do have, though, presumably, is some people that have been shopping with you. So to nurture that customer base, to get the contact information, do you get the email? Do you get the cell number? Are you actually sending segmented marketing blasts to your base? I go into shops constantly and I feel fucking insulted that they don't ask me for any of my contact information because I'm a super loyal dude. You know me by name, you call me by name, you have good stuff. I am your guy. I will to the end of the fucking earth. And that doesn't happen. So
No,
the
you're
opportunity I think for retailer is to engage, to give a shit, to actually really be a part of the ecosystem. And I understand high volume shops and kiosk mode and all of the like. I personally think cannabis is more personalized,
it is.
especially for new entrants to market who need that engagement and guidance. And I think the industry is moving the other way out of margin pressure and just looking to turn this thing over and blast people through the line. And I think we're missing the boat.
Yeah, it's why I'm gonna stick with the idea of craft and small anything, get behind it. It's survived in the microbrew world for a long time. It can survive in cannabis. You have to be nimble, you have to be just expense down to the fucking T's. You cannot waste money in any way. These farms or these places that have one or two dispensaries and you got 5 people in your C-suite, the first problem you got is too many people. A lot of people hemorrhage money because they don't understand how business works. Just because you grow weed doesn't mean you understand how business works. So just to Jesse's point, talk to people, engage people, be around people. The distributor thing is interesting though. So like Humble Farms, right? They're a distributor. Do they take on other farms under their distro license?
Exactly what they do is they source and then they sell. So and that's what distributors are doing. They are sourcing material from other, many cases in Humboldt, small family farms. Then they are taking that stuff, either packaging it up through their own manufacturing and then distroing it out or selling bulk pounds. But that's the way the product is flowing. We do not have direct channel from farm to retail, nor do we really have it from farm to consumer, which is what all the family farms want, is the ability to stand up an e-commerce menu and ship them product, or at least to be able to meet and greet and gatherings and the like
What
and
about the
consumption
farmers
venues.
market thing, Jesse? What's that
Yeah,
about?
I
I hear
think
a lot
that
of fervor. What's the deal?
there's a lot of fervor because who was opposed to that was the retailer. So
Sure.
the guys
Sure.
out of the desert in LA, I think I forget Palm Springs areas, all those, and a whole bunch of others united in opposition because they didn't want the farm to have that. They felt threatened by that. But then what I counter that with is, okay, I understand that in business.
Yeah.
So then what are you really doing though to support many of the family farms that you're now in essence blocking? They're not stocking their product. I can
Correct.
tell you that the majority of people that stood up against those things, they're not stocking the little regenerative 10,000 square foot farms product on their shelves anyway. They want the sale,
Yeah.
but they're not really, it's not two-way. So what
Okay.
I'd like to see is broader adoption of small family farm product across the universe. I would like to see looser restrictions around DTC. And, I hope for a thriving small business, mid-market, and enterprise cannabis section. And like many, I fear that we're just moving, to big, and we hope to preserve, the entire gamut.
Yeah, I think I hope the same. I have the same hope for all of that. And I think that we also need to talk about something you just mentioned. And retailers talk a lot about compression and a lot about acquisition. Again, these are all things that in my world relate directly. I know people don't somehow see automotive as retail. It is. It's just expensive retail. So it's the same. There's nothing different. When I talk about the car business, you could just put the word cannabis instead of car business, and you'll end up with the same discussions, especially here. So cost of acquisition going up. We're seeing it in the automotive space as well, right? So in order to get them, you got to go. What do we do though? Well, in the car business, we have the service department where we do our retention. That's where we retain people. That's where we keep them loyal. You, me, right? Like you talked about. I don't know. I've been to 20 dispensaries, okay? In let's call it the last 5 months locally. Not one person has asked me for my email. Mm-hmm. I have filled out the entire form with said email. I volunteer my shit.
Yeah.
I have 0 emails in the old inbox to date of anything, of anywhere. And don't tell me it's geography. You should want me even more because I live in a prohibition state. You should know that I'm going wherever the fuck I can to find whatever I can, wherever I can. So nothing ever happens, right? So don't complain about selling more weed if you don't know how to create demand for selling more weed. That is a you problem. It's not a cultivator problem. And don't blame the market because of the choices that exist. You have to learn how to market. There are 7,000 car dealerships. There will be 20,000 dispensaries in California. You know what I mean? Like, so you guys are already outpacing major industry with the number of people in competition. You got to find a way to get better, period.
It's the truth. And I think that change is scary for some, right? We get it. The fact that things used to be really good, I think folks are still hearkening back to a time, well, I didn't used to do it. Well, you need to do it today. So I think it's about getting people on your team and on your staff that are energized about these kinds of things, that are excited to have their finger to the pulse of some of the newer platform developments, because cannabis tech is evolving. The platforms, the loyalty, the marketing stuff, AI can help you personalize and segment things. So it's changing. But if you're not out searching, it's going to be hard. And we do know consolidation is coming. But if you don't have a shop that is showing strong EBITDA, you're not much of a takeover target. So the dreams that folks even had or have of a profitable exit, if you're not building a fantastic business and you can't show that on your books, dude,
people don't just want to buy you because you're in the weed business. You have to be able to make money. That's not how acquisition goes. It's not ever gone that way. Jesse, your free advice has been unbelievable. Leave us with one last thought from you, Jesse, to the audience. What will it be on the final thought here of the free Jesse hour?
Yeah, I would just say to try and stay in love, and it's hard. I've been beaten down in the industry like many people have. At its core, this plan is magical. We are saving and improving lives. Keep on the grind. Lifelong learning is a commitment, and just keep after it, man. And anybody that needs help, wants to shoot the shit, my DMs are open. Please hit me up. I won't charge you a dime.
That's our guy right there, Jesse Duncan. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it, man. You have been an unbelievable way to round out here. The Jesse will be the second to last episode of the year. So we are going to have a lot of fun here on the way out. Jesse, thank you so much for your time. Folks, thank you for joining us. Fat Nugs, as always, thank you so much for the sponsorship. We appreciate you. If you're not already a retail and brand partner, reach out to Dustin, anyone on the team, and they can help you get involved because it is the place to be in the industry. Thank you guys so much. Remember, remove the stigma, uplift the plant. That's our goal. We hope it's yours. Have yourselves a great week. We'll see you next week.
Peace, everybody.